Greetings, distinguished followers, chosen chimp here, and welcome to my review of The Well, the third episode of the brand new series of Doctor Who, and I hope you are all doing well. Just to let you know, this review will be full of spoilers, so if you want to watch it and you haven't watched it, then don't watch this. But then go and watch it and then come back and watch this so we can all talk about it together over a finger of rum and a Stilton pot. So, having changed from their 1952 Miami Floridor garb, the Doctor and Belinda make their latest pit stop in their quest to triangulate their position via the Vindicator to find their way back on Earth on May 24th, 2025. Is it 24th or 25th? I can't remember. Anyway, their latest pit stop is 500,000 years into the future on the mysterious planet of 6767. It is there that they join a rescue crew who are sent there to investigate the disappearance of a mining colony of 35 people who have gone silent. When they enter the base, they find nothing but dead, broken bodies and one singular survivor. What the dickens is going on, and does the Doctor know a little bit more than everything else about the sinister forces at work here? Well, so yeah, they do. Aye. So this episode, first of all, as a return to form, as regards to an exercise in suspense, I have got a lot of praise to say about this episode. When they land on that planet and they go to the initial first cluster of reveals, what we have here is a extremely potent and masterful exercise in suspense and tension and mystery. I love the look and I love the sound of this episode. When they land and they go into this base, the set design and the appearance and the general look and feel of it all really harkens back to the space horror vibes that I don't think Doctor Who has done in quite some time. Everything looks really cool. It reminds me of, those survival horror science fiction first-person shooter games such as Half-Life and Doom and things like that. The kind of rusty, industrial colour-codedness of this facility that they enter resonates really well with me. This is just my cup of tea. I feel really at home in episodes of Doctor Who like this one. And then we get to this thing, The Well itself, and I hate it. It's horrible. Look at it. It's just a big hole in the ground. Not a steady decline, not a gradual staircase or a cable car or anything. It's just a drop into darkness. A pure vertical drop. And you know what the worst thing about it is there's not even any bloody barriers. Keep away from the edge, Doctor. Flipping heck, who built that? It's just the most unsafe thing ever built by a mining facility. Not even a handrail, not even a keep away sign or danger or anything. It's just there and then you can fall in it. Just why? It's going to give me nightmares for a long time, that. And good, because that is the whole point. What I mean here, of course, is that thing is excellent, brilliant stuff. Big mystery, they find one survivor, a girl called Alice, who is there on her own. She's clean, nothing wrong with her. She's not an alien in disguise, essentially, or anything. She is just the final victim of the monstrous forces at work. She is sat in a wide room, and whenever the camera films her, it has a tendency to frame her small in this big, wide, metallic, industrial, ominous, creepy composition, and it's just great. I was on the edge of my seat watching this episode for the first time, and that was a kind of difficult position for me to be in, because when I watched this, I was watching it on my phone on a train. I was getting the train to Birmingham to meet some friends. I took a photo of a Lenny Henry's horse there, I think is what that thing is called. A great time seeing friends and that. So I watched this on the train because I heard it was going to be a bit of a big one, and I just couldn't wait. Basically, So, and I'll kind of get back to how that affected my response to this episode in just a minute. But going through the motions and getting towards that very first jump scare, this whole ride was just great for me. We've got the found footage, CCTV camera horror aspect, which we've seen in many a sci-fi horror film and TV show before, but again, it's right up my street, right in my ballpark. I was gushing over this, seeing all the crew panic at this unseen force. And the thing is, I must say, I completely misfired on my suspicions of this one, because one of the other main female character, Shia, she says hope is irrelevant, which I thought was a very Cyberman-ish thing to say, and I was wondering if this was going to be a big comeback for Cybermen. I did postulate at one point as to whether this would be Telos thousands and millions of years down its timeline, but it's not, so I misfired on that one. My point is this: I didn't know what to expect. There was a fan theory, there were suspicions, that completely went over my head. I had no idea where this was going. And then when you get to the found footage CCTV moment, you get to the first jump scare, which is one of the best jump scares I think I have ever seen in Doctor Who. And before you think I am overly gushing at this, I have a plethora of criticisms of this episode as well, which I will get to soon. So I'm not just going to subjectively waffle about how this was the greatest Doctor Who thing ever. I don't think it was, but up until this point, I was all in on this ride. And the first jump scare where you see the thing slightly behind her going in, and that sharp, shrill violin musical pop that you get, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And they get us twice, because when Belinda is dressing Alice's wound, they do the same thing again, but this time closer up, and it gets you a second time. Both times it's completely unexpected. Wonderful. So far, the well has got me. So we're going to get to the big reveal, basically. The Doctor is talking to Shia, Belinda is talking to Alice, and the parallel mystery that weaves into the bigger thread of this series is that even though these are humans on a human colony in deep space, they have no memory of Earth, meaning that basically planet Earth has been blinkered out of the timeline, which feeds into this longer narrative of planet Earth being destroyed on May the 20-something, 2025. And then the big reveal hits. This is the deep, deep future of the planet Midnight, which the Doctor visited before during the episode Midnight, where it was a diamond planet and a tourist attraction. So, my immediate thought when I'm watching this on the train is, right, okay, I'm going to watch the rest of the episode, I'm going to go through the motions, and I did, and the first time around watching this episode, I honestly did not know what to make of it. So then I went back, and I went home from my trip to see my friends in Birmingham, and I watched both episodes back to back. I watched Midnight, and then I immediately rewatched The Well after it, and I just have to say, it's time to present another edition of Fake Doctor Who Fan, and this week's award for Fake Doctor Who Fan once again goes to the Chosen Chimp, because it has been an extremely long time since I have watched Midnight. No, I'm going to tell you the absolute truth. I have seen Midnight before, but I haven't watched it since it was first transmitted back in 2008, because I'm a fake fan. I'm a rubbish Doctor Who fan. I'm crap. I should stop watching Doctor Who, and I should no longer be talking about something I clearly have no understanding of, because Midnight is heralded as one of the greatest Doctor Who episodes of all time. It's generally widely accepted that that is the case. And this was only the second time that I have ever watched Midnight, and I absolutely, definitely 100% completely let this one fly over my head, because watching it this morning, my God, what a fantastic episode of Doctor Who Midnight is. It is essentially mechanically perfect from beginning to end. It's so jovial and so lighthearted at the beginning, and then just descends into this spiral of paranoia-induced madness, where from the start to the finish, the Doctor is completely helpless and continues to be helpless, and by design it does nothing to resolve the situation. If anything, it makes it worse, and he doesn't even want Donna to joke with him about it after. It is an experience that haunts him for the rest of his life. Fantastic bit of Doctor Who television storytelling. So now we get to The Well, which is the honorary sequel, the blood relative, if you like, to Midnight. It's set on the planet, and it is an old enemy for the Doctor, and also an opportunity for some kind of reconciliation. Now, is The Well as good as Midnight? I suppose that's the question that a lot of people want to be asking about this, and not quite. No, I don't think it is, but how do you improve on perfection, really, when Midnight is essentially, mechanically, a perfect episode of Doctor Who? If you disagree, absolutely fine, that's cool. I mean, I've only watched it for the first time since 2008, so what the heck do I know? But I was watching it this morning, and I think it's pretty much just bang on all the way through. There isn't really an element of flawedness in it at any point, really. And The Well, it's got its moments, okay? So from this point on, the game has changed, because we are dealing with a familiar entity, except this time around the rules are changed. Last time it was possessing people and mimicking their speech, going slightly behind, then perfectly in sync, and then going into the future and then jumping across and possessing the Doctor. You know the story. This time the rules have changed, because even for a glimmer, and boy am I good at screen capturing, look at that, you actually see this thing hiding behind. And the game it's playing this time around, if we are indeed led to assume that it is the same creature, and there is some implication from the Doctor that it is, its game is to go directly behind the other person and just stay there. And if somebody goes behind the person while the person has to stay looking at the people in front, that person will get killed via thrown across the roomness, which we all experience in this story as it progresses. Belinda does a bit of Doctorness and uses a visual demonstration as to how this works, using a ratchet bolt nut type thing, putting one there to represent the person and one there to represent the creature, and then if you go behind, then you're facing the creature, and then that allows the audience to understand what otherwise might be a bit of a baffling concept. I got to be honest, the train was chugging. I had to be aware of getting off to the correct station, so I was a little bit distracted when I watched this the first time around. Maybe I shouldn't have watched it on the train, and maybe I should just shut up about that journey because it's not relevant. And then the Doctor says that it is kind of a clock face visual representation of Midnight, because if you are at the person 6 and then you go to their 12, that is the point when the creature will get you. If it's a clock face and you go to Midnight, that's when it kills you. Very clever, Russell T, or if it was the other person that co-wrote this episode. Very good, very Stephen Moffat-y. I like it. So this runs parallel to the descent of madness that you get in Midnight, albeit to a slightly lesser effective extent, I think. In this one, the crew gradually start to turn on their superiors and turn on the Doctor, and it's always the gung-ho group in this community that fall prey to the methods of the monster first by saying stupid things like, oh yeah, you go behind it and engage it and you kill it with a big gun, and maybe you have to kill Alice and all the rest as well. And obviously they're going to be the first ones to get bumped off, and they do. Ha ha, serves you right for being such buffoons. So there's that same aspect. And the other aspect of this, which I thought was similar to Midnight, was the fact that the Doctor kind of sidesteps a little bit to allow other people to do the storytelling on his behalf, which is kind of what happened in Midnight itself, actually. There's a lot of explaining done by the kiddie, whatever his name is, you know, the guy that played Merlin, that guy. He does a lot of the explanation, and a few of the other characters do as well, like Patrick Troughton's son in Midnight does some talking to cue the audience in on what's going on. And this time around, it's Belinda, and there's a few lines by Shire as well, I think, who is a great character, by the way. I really like Shire. Kind of explaining what is going on here, and the Doctor is kind of sidestepping a bit, which was done in Midnight because the Doctor wanted to be portrayed as much of a victim and as much of a vulnerable entity as everyone else who was stuck on the train, and they kind of do the same thing, and I'm not particularly sure if it works quite as well or even if it's intentional. It just seemed to me that once again the supporting characters were doing the majority of the explaining, but then you do get the big exposition from the Doctor a bit later on when he talks about how this creature likes to play games, how it is an entity without a name, without a voice, and how it is basically dead evil. And what's great about the well is even though it changes the rules, it still has this element of not knowing what the hell this is, and that kind of continues throughout the episode. They almost keep the mythology of this character clean to a degree. Now, there's a lot of mutiny and betrayal. A lot of people die before the Doctor decides to make the big step and try and perform some kind of reconciliation with this character. He goes up to Alice, who this character has been standing behind the entire time, and he starts addressing the character directly. And this is what leads us, the audience, to assume that it is the precise same exact entity that was blown out of the shuttle's airlock in Midnight. It's an opportunity for the Doctor to make good on this experience, which has probably haunted him for the entire time since it has happened to him way back in Midnight, which in Doctor Who lore is an extremely long time ago. This is an interesting point of conversation for the episode, which I personally will obviously humbly admit that I am somewhat ill-equipped to make commentary on, because when the Doctor gets right close to the entity, he can hear the whispers, and then it turns out when the entity goes behind a person, which is what drove all the other crew to either get flung across a room or to get other people to shoot that person to get rid of it, and then it jumps onto another person. He goes right behind the entity and he hears the entity whispering, and he realises that the reason why Alice has survived with her sanity intact for so long is because she is deaf and she cannot hear this creature whispering. So this is one of a couple of examples in this story where the fact that Alice is deaf has been highlighted. The Doctor uses sign language, which is an intimate moment between him and her. There's no translation for people who, for audience members who don't know sign language, which I suppose is kind of, I don't know, It's a kind of reflection of how some of the soldiers perceive it, because they don't know what they're saying, and obviously the negative response to that is for the soldiers to get immediately paranoid because they think that the Doctor and Alice is having a conversation between each other that nobody else is privy to, and the Doctor makes this kind of allegory, which is a direct kind of sort of message to the audience watching, is that no matter what time you are, some people find sign language discomforting, or words to that effect, And then a second kind of allegorical, if you like, nod to the audience is when they talk about nurses and people in the medical profession being kind of automatically obliged to know sign language, and Belinda agrees that in her own time it should be law. So those are two examples where I think this episode wants the audience to view certain stigma and certain misconceptions through the perspective of Alice as a deaf person. And again, I can't make any sensible commentary or critique about this. It would be rude and obtuse of me to do so, because I don't have the experience that a deaf person does have. I wonder how well it's going to go down the fact that the Doctor has basically explained that it was her deafness that saved her. I don't really know how that's going to translate, if he's implying that her deafness was some kind of superpower, that it was actually good in this instance that she's deaf. I don't quite know how people are going to perceive that, whether or not that's going to be a good thing. And the other thing I thought about this was that, if nothing else, this episode, to me personally, it kind of highlighted the struggles that a deaf person might have, but in a way that I don't think the episode intended. And here's why, and I absolutely swear, I genuinely am not trying to be funny here or make some smart-ass commentary at all. I'm genuinely trying to harness my idiot ape brain to make a semi-sensible observation here. But it brought to light how a deaf person might have struggles that other people might not be aware of, from the angle that this is an episode, The Well is an episode that relies so heavily on sound. About 70 to 80% of the experience of this episode is due to its audio, the music, the suspenseful music, those violin jump scare pops, which is 90% of the reason why you go like that when the thing appears behind Alice's head and all this. And it really made me sort of kind of think about and contemplate the disadvantages that a person who can't hear might have when they're trying to enjoy an episode such as this. Now, again, I can't make any sort of intelligent commentary past that, because it would be rude of me to do so, because I don't have the experience. But what I would like, what I would really sort of like to see is if anybody who does have that experience who wants to comment or drop in or DM on Blue Sky or whatever and explain to me kind of what they thought this character of Alice was as a opportunity to represent deaf people, because I just don't know. I genuinely don't know, and I couldn't tell you. So, but I'm interested to find out. So if anybody kind of wants to put in the comments or just drop in and explain that to me, I would love to know. But I'm just thinking that the Doctor's saying your deafness saved you, and I don't know. Does that sit right? Does that pan out? Is that good representation that the deafness was a superpower? I don't know. Anyway. So that's my thoughts on that. And then, so as regards to the creature is concerned, this kind of confused me, and this is where the cleverness of the episode kind of falls flat and sidesteps into something that I think is a little bit silly, because the Doctor realizes that what if the creature is behind itself, then what's going to happen then? So he starts thinking about reflections and mercury, and he gets Shire, who's a crack shot, to shoot the pipes to make the mercury drain down, so it essentially creates a mirror. The creature has been smashing mirrors, or getting people to smash mirrors, to prevent this from happening even further, and I'm just thinking to myself, why? Why is this a weakness? Why are you bound by these rules? Because, as the Doctor said himself, this creature is doing this because it likes having fun, and its method of fun in Midnight was to possess people and repeat their speech. Now, given that was one of its many methods of trickery and, methodology of bullying these poor vulnerable humans, how is it bound by these rules that it created just to have a bit of fun? Why is it that now it has suddenly jumped from repeating people's speech to hiding behind people, that is now a weakness? Surely it can just look at the reflection and go, oh yeah, so that's fine, but I just made this game up anyway just to taunt people, so tell you what, that won't affect me, I'll just change the rules and make a different game. Anyway, it works. The creature jumps out, Alice is saved, and she's kind of done for this episode now. She gets out alive. She gets, they're going to get picked up and rescued, kind of like in Midnight anyway, so that's all good. She gets off with another handful of survivors, and she's done, and it's up to the rest of the crew to jettison out of the base, which they have to do in teams, because it can only be a certain amount of people at a time, and it's at this point that they realise that this entity has gone into the airlock with them, and now it is standing behind Belinda. Now, Shia's a crack shot, and she has a good idea. Sort of. I mean, I think shooting Belinda to get rid of the creature is a bit of a reach, and I can understand why she did it. I'll get to that in a second. But man, it's just the way the Doctor stands there, kind of idly, dumbfoundedly watching as this woman shoots her companion. I'm just glad it wasn't the Brigadier doing this. You know, it was a very unit kind of thing to do. Like, he'd have probably done it with a bazooka or something and just gone, "Don't worry, Doctor, I won't be needing your help this time," you know. But no, she has a crack shot, and it's only a laser gun, I suppose, you know, very sort of tiny, pew, like that, not bullets from a gun or anything. But I was just really worried that this wasn't a good idea, just, you know, shooting the companion. She's only been on 3 adventures, and she gets shot already. No wonder she wants to go home. But this is a noble, admirable sacrifice, because the monster jumps onto her back and she hears the whispers and she makes the ultimate sacrifice, and it is a sacrifice that I'm pretty sure I would not be able to do myself, because she runs back into the base and jumps into the bloody well. She like bungee jumps, but without the bungee cord. She turns around and dives in backwards. I could never do that. So there is this bit of wild exposition where you get this voiceover of her telling her entire life and, you know, well, summarising her life at least, and you get some very artful, very gorgeously composed shots of her as a little child running through this flaming planet with a giant T-Rex skull or whatever that is, and everything's on fire, and it's good. I don't really know why it needs to be there. It's a bit of a distraction from everything else that's going on. And I'm in two minds about that, because part of me thinks that they just didn't really need to give such heavy exposition for a supporting character moments before she dies. But like I said, that sacrifice that she makes to destroy this creature is very spine-chilling. So even though she's a supporting character for 1 episode, she probably deserves that as a tribute for what she did. Or didn't do. Yeah. The ending. Oh, yeah. And just before all this happens, there's a bit of dialogue that the Doctor says, and I really wish he hadn't said it, because it just got me thinking that they really missed a trick. There was this really good concept that was put on the table that they just completely bypassed, because the Doctor says to Belinda, when she still has the creature behind her, he says, "You can jump on my back, and when you're piggybacking me, we can explore the whole universe together, and I will show you everything." And I just thought, imagine if it did. And then that became the template for an entire series of Doctor Who. The Doctor travelling through time and space doing Doctor stuff, but the entire time he's got this malignant force tormenting him and whispering in his ear, which he has to deal with on top of everything else. I thought it was quite a Stephen Moffat-y concept, and imagine if, say for example, it was Peter Capaldi's Doctor doing that. You can just imagine how that would really work as a binding theme throughout the series, and how it would sort of jump in and out at the most inconvenient points at every episode and really put a spanner in the works. But no, that never happened. So all is well that ends well, except for all the people who were killed. And the Doctor and Belinda on the TARDIS, and even though she's been shot, she's alright, she's fine. Shia was very good at getting the right bit of the human body as not to kill her. So it's all good, and they're a bit worried because everyone denied that there was ever such a planet called Earth. So they need to get to the bottom of that. So that's the pending mystery, and I'm pretty sure that Belinda just wants to just kind of, you know, close the lid on this time travel malarkey and get home once and for all, because that was just not a nice experience for her at all, even in the slightest. But just as they leave, the story pulls us, the audience, back into the universe of the deep 500,000 years in the future for one final twist. 2 female crew members talking about what happened down on the surface, and one has a bit of a double take at something behind the other one. Cuts to black. You hear the whisper. Oh boy, oh boy. It's a good twist because the audience walks away knowing that it was still out there, and I am looking forward to potentially another 70 years down the line to see the third and final installment of the Midnight Trilogy, perhaps, maybe, who knows. And in that pocket of time, maybe it will go on to wipe out the entire human race, but that doesn't have much of a bearing on anything else that happens in Doctor Who because it's so far into the deep future. Clever, I like it, except, of course, it made Shire's sacrifice completely meaningless. Lots of exposition for nothing. So that twist is both good and bad. I liked it, but I'm not sure it works, and I'm still trying to figure out if it actually just rendered the rest of the episode completely meaningless. I just don't know. That overall this story just isn't quite as tight as Midnight, is it now, from that aspect? As an exercise in suspense and mystery and fear and terror and general heart-stopping, jumpy creepiness, I thought The Well was a very good episode indeed. I've watched it twice now, and I am looking forward to watching it again. Did it have a clear and consistent personality of its own? Yes, and was I entertained? Very much so. I still feel this series is going strong. However, my negative criticism lies in the fact that I think people who really kind of microscopically break down this episode, and I have tried to do so myself to an extent, they will be able to watch this alongside Midnight, and they will be able to present a concise case study as to why and how this current chapter of Doctor Who just isn't quite as good as Doctor Who was back in the day during the original David Tennant RTD saga. And the most obvious reasons are some of the things with the Mercury, the rules that this creature has bound itself by that doesn't really make sense, the meaningless sacrifice that Shire performed when it's just going to come back at the end, the potential, I say potential because I don't know, maybe slightly misguided representation of the deaf character. I don't know, but it seems to be a bit of a victim of the problem that a lot of episodes of modern Doctor Who have. And here we go again. It seems like it's just cramming a little bit too much into one story, and I think that for the first time, I'm going to say for the first time, I think Ncuti Gatwa's performance was somewhat flat in places, not because he was acting badly, but I think his response to being thrown back into the terror of the Midnight experience wasn't quite as proportionate to the trauma that David Tennant's Doctor experienced in the first episode. I mean, yeah, he's crying again, and he's doing the Ncuti Gatwa thing that this particular Doctor does, and it's all fun and games, but I can't help thinking that he should have just ramped it up a little bit more, given that this particular adventure is so personal to him. Instead, he kind of sidesteps and looks shocked while other people do a lot of the work for him. But maybe that's the point. So I found this a very difficult episode to review and have a final take, and so what I'm going to do personally, which I think a lot of you would do, is maybe just stop trying to analyse this one so hard and just have fun with it. Was it perfect? No. Was it as good as Midnight? No. Was it unto its own a good, effective episode of Doctor Who? Yes. There were so many technical, mechanical elements of this that worked extremely well. So there you go. That is my review, and I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, God. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. Miss Flood. What's she doing there now? This is getting annoying, I'm sorry. I don't like this anymore. She's just doing what Susan Twist did in the last series, except now it's Miss Flood. Can you just explain what this is now? Because we've seen it all before. It's just getting boring. Look, there she is now. What a surprise. Oh, she's a different character? Is that the origins of Miss Flood? Will it make sense in the end? Who knows? Just it's just getting a bit repetitive, isn't it? Come on. It's not really a, ooh, there she is moment. It's just like, think that really detracted from everything else that was going on here. Just, yeah. I mean, she was kind of looking at the camera saying, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen with the Vindicator, exactly what I expected, or words to that effect. And maybe that is her kind of breaking the fourth wall to an extent. I don't know. I just wish they'd just bloody get on with it, because it's distracting from the good stuff, which is getting Belinda home. And yeah, speaking of which, it's The Legend of Ruby Sunday Part 2. Next week. I can't remember what this episode is actually called, nor will I pretend that I do remember. I'm just going to admit I can't remember what it's called, but there she is. It's a Ruby Sunday episode. The Doctor's landing on Earth to see what Ruby's been up to, and there's Belinda in that shot there. So she's come back to Earth. She's there. She's home. Yeah, don't know. We'll have to see. Confused. Very confused indeed. But I will be there back at my normal time to review that particular episode. And until then, I hope you all have a great week. If you want to check me out on social media, please come and visit my Blue Sky at thechosenchimp.bsky.social. You can also hook up with me on Patreon at patreon.com/chosenchimp, where you can become a distinguished follower for just £1 a month. And if you do that, I will mention your name in these videos. TikTok, I hope you are all having a good week. Please take care of yourselves, and most importantly, for the love of Pete and his world, have a good one.